Diego Rivera, professor and director of jazz studies at the University of Texas at Austin, Butler School of Music.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, and it's very exciting. You've got a big trip coming up in just about a month to New York City.
Yes, we do. We're excited to be and very honored to be representing the Butler School and the University of Texas, and really the city of Austin it's newly branded. It used to be called the Jack Rudin Jazz Championship, but now it's called the National Collegiate Jazz Championship, hosted by Jazz at Lincoln Center.
Yeah, I mean, when people hear just the name Lincoln Center, it just has so much prestige and just so much weight. It's almost like Carnegie Hall or something. So tell how did this come about? This competition?
Well, this competition is actually a variation on a competition that Jazz at Lincoln Center had been doing for a number of years and still is doing. They just celebrated their 30th anniversary, and it's the Essentially Ellington competition. And that competition was started by Wynton Marsalis and Jazz at Lincoln Center to encourage young people to celebrate and really get interested in and establish the music of Duke Ellington as kind of like the foundation, the bedrock of these high school programs around the country. That was about 30 years ago, and they welcomed the first host of high school bands playing the music of Duke Ellington. And 30 years later, it's really left a pretty significant impact on the way that high schools deal with repertoire, the way that they deal with the music, and it's had a huge impact in terms of where these students start their education in terms of jazz. They start out with something like Duke Ellington or Count Basie, Mary Lou Williams. Essentially Ellington has really done a great job of starting these students off on a wonderful trajectory to get into the music of Charlie Parker and John Coltrane and these sort of things. It's transformed some of these high school bands that were otherwise kind of like show bands or pep bands into ensembles that deal with the music from a historical and perspective. And so about 5 years ago, Todd Stoll, who is the vice president for education, and Wynton Marsalis, they announced that they would be doing a similar format for collegiate ensembles. And the first competition, I believe, was in 2020, just mere months before.
The worst time.
We took a little hiatus. As a matter of fact, it was the timing was actually pretty amazing. And in 2020, they decided to form a collegiate competition. And at my previous institution, Michigan State University, where I was for 20 years, we were invited as one of the first bands to attend and compete, where we placed third. Then obviously we took a little time off. We came back in 2022, my last year, and we came in first place. They had it one other year, and then they took a break for a couple years. And so this is the first time they're having this competition in about 2 years. And Todd Stoll reached out to me along with Wynton Marsalis, inviting the UT Jazz Orchestra to participate and compete in this year's event.
Amazing. Will you be having any interaction with the high school groups, or is it completely separate?
It's completely collegiate.
Okay.
We are a regional, essentially Ellington host site. So several bands from around this. It's really
high school bands, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like high school bands from Central Texas. But, the program has been so successful here at UT, even just we're in our second year, we're already getting, interest and calls from as far away as Arlington and Dallas and Houston. And we've always had more than a few schools from the border, so as well as from Central Texas. So, we're a pretty strong, essentially Ellington regional site. And so they have these regional, in addition to the national competition, they have these regional festivals. And we became a regional host 2 years ago. But this competition is just for college students.
Okay. And you said it changed the rep that the kids will start learning in high school. Mm-hmm. Like, is that just because all these people came together and they just like, how did that come about?
Well, Jazz Lincoln Center will publish, several, about a dozen or so charts every year, and they'll give them away free to high school band directors, and they'll give them resource guides, and they make recordings. The Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra makes recordings of the tunes, and they disperse them all over the country to encourage students to get into the music of Duke Ellington, because it was around 30 years ago that I started my high school, education, or maybe a little bit more than 30 years, but who's counting? In any event, the repertoire that we were dealing with, it would, Ellington and Basie and that sort of stuff would be kind of peppered into our programming. It wasn't until college till I really got into the music of Duke Ellington or Count Basie or Lester Young and Coleman Hawkins and John Coltrane, and a lot of the music that we celebrate now. And so what essentially Ellington has done is given these students an opportunity to get into this music in high school. So what I'm seeing at the collegiate level is you're getting a different level of literacy coming out of high school, and it's actually been pretty amazing the impact that this program has had across the country.
Yeah, we just take it for granted now that in high school they'll be playing that stuff. So what would they play before? You mentioned like kind of show and pep kind of.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of work for Christmas tunes or seasonal tunes and stuff like that. What did I play? Theme from Batman, Peter Gunn.
Okay. Yeah.
I wonder if any of our students are even old enough to understand that reference. But there would be stock arrangements of standards like Love for Sale and what is the thing called Love and Blue Bossa and that sort of stuff. So it wasn't necessarily the repertoire in terms of the titles of the songs that we were playing, but it was really, it's Duke Ellington is much more than his compositions. He represents an insight into the culture of jazz, which is what we're really big on here. For as much as we love and as much as we do jazz education, what we're really good about is jazz culture. And Duke Ellington gives us an insight into a lot of those things. Duke Ellington would play music that, under his pen, but he would write for the musician in the band. He wouldn't necessarily write for the instrument. So
really, okay.
Yeah, Duke Ellington's music was always about the individual. And through studying the music of Duke Ellington, they're not playing first alto, they're not playing first tenor, they're not playing lead trumpet. They're playing Johnny Hodges' chair.
Yeah.
They're playing Ben Webster's solos. They're playing Ben Webster's chair. They're playing Cat Anderson's,
Do you think the students here grasp that?
Oh, certainly.
Oh, wow.
Certainly. Really cool. Yeah, that's we talk very in depth about the chair that they're sitting in and the long legacy of first tenor players in bands all across, throughout the history of the music. Great lead trumpet players, to personify the music. So it really falls in line with what jazz is, and jazz is about the people, as much as it is about the notes. It's as much, to use a football reference, it's not only about the X's and O's, it's about the Jims and the Joes.
Yeah. So this is obviously a huge, because it's 10 collegiate groups have been invited to this. How do you prepare? It's like kind of the biggest stage for a college jazz band. How do you prepare for something like this?
It's hard to prepare for something that takes us out of what we normally do, because we take this music very seriously, and we've taken all of our concerts very seriously. And there's a great deal of study and depth and history and lessons about culture, and I'll share stories about the music. So we do a lot of the same prep work. The most important thing, or I think one of the most beneficial things about this, is the fact that we're going to go through our routine. We're going to do the things, there'll be a couple extra rehearsals to make sure that we're in, top shape and top form. But largely, we're going to do the things that have made us a successful band. And I think what's important for the students is to know that they're able to go through the routine, treat the music with the same seriousness and the same level of dedication that they always do, and then be able to see how that plays out against some of the top programs in the country. And I think that's, earlier this summer we went to Japan where we did a 10-day tour. And the most beneficial thing about that was that our students were able to see how they compare, how they measure up, or, to hear peers their own age playing this music. It was an incredible experience because for several of them, you saw the light flash, you saw the light bulb go off, and,
Yeah.
they got a real sense of, I deserve to play this music, and I'm right there. Like, if I can really do this. This isn't necessarily something that's outside of my grasp. And so I think for these students, kind of like doubling down on the things that we do to play at the highest level, doing those things in preparation for what we're about to do, I think will be revealing and it'll be rewarding because they'll be like, these are the top ensembles in the country. These are the top musicians in the country. This is my peer group when we all become professionals. I'm right there. This is, and also they'll be able to see, well, to perform at the highest level, these are the things I need to get together. And what's really special is when, students are able to go to these sort of events or these sort of trips or have these sort of interactions and really discover what makes them unique. And that is actually what we're talking about when we talk about why Duke Ellington's music is so important. It's because you got to discover what's unique about yourself. I always believe that everybody in this business, everybody in this art form does one thing better than anybody else. There's one thing that you do as a musician better than anybody else. The great ones just figure out what that is and they nurture it.
Yeah, I mean, everyone does have that kind of special thing they do really well. Are you worried, though, about being able to perform in this kind of weird time? It's maybe the worst possible time to go to something like this. It's right after the winter break. So people are all going home to their families. They might be spending a lot of time in places that would be hard to practice. Are you worried at all about performing right after the winter break?
It's the same question almost that people ask me or parents ask me when they say, well, how do I get my kid to practice? Well, you can't get them to practice.
Okay.
They have to want to practice. I think for some of the students, it may test their resolve, may test their dedication, but that's all part of the process. That's all part of the experience. And for the large, overwhelming majority of our students, I'm pretty confident they're going to be practicing over the break. And several of our students, are working. This is, for a jazz musician, this is prime season. There's a lot of Christmas parties. There's a lot of holiday parties. It's kind of like a nationwide tradition that you do the Ellington version of Strayhorn's Nutcracker. And, so Ellington is all around us at this time, Christmas tunes. I'm leaving to New York tomorrow to play a week at Jazz Lincoln Center. And there's a lot of holiday tunes. So, I don't think there's anything extra we have to do. These students are pretty excited. They're dedicated. And, I know the large majority of them, are going to be in the practice room and they're going to be preparing and they have a lot of other gigs on their plate. So they may take a couple days off between Christmas and New Year's, but other than that, I have no doubt that they're going to be ready.
So what does the actual competition look like? It's over multiple days, right?
So we'll arrive on January 15th, which is a Thursday. On January 16th, it'll be workshops and it'll be an opportunity to rehearse and to be clinicianed by some of the members of the Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra. And that Friday night, one of our combos, the UT Blue Note combo, will be opening up for Jazz at Lincoln Center that evening. The competition runs all day Saturday, where all 10 bands will compete in our preliminary round. Top 3 bands will be announced on that Saturday night. Sunday morning, there's a combo showcase where our one combo from every school will be featured, and our combo will be performing on that Sunday morning. They'll have an award ceremony, the evening concert, and they'll announce the top 3 placing bands in order.
So how long is your set in that first round?
18 glorious minutes with talking.
Okay. So how do you plan that out?
Well, you try to do the things that you believe in. We obviously love to swing, and so our charts are going to be swinging. We have a number of fantastic soloists. With 18 minutes and only 3 selections, it's hard to feature everybody. But we're going to manage to get to make sure that folks get an opportunity to hear our outstanding soloists. Some of the music has been selected from a pool of music that we have to choose from, and then we have one of the tunes needs to be from the essentially Ellington library. So we're going to be doing the music of Duke Ellington, and then the third one is a kind of a wild card. We have a wonderful vocalist, so we're going to pick a vocal tune to fill that third slot.
Wonderful. Yeah, and will your group get a chance to listen to some of the other groups, or do you pretty much stay separate the whole time? Yeah.
No. I mean, we're all kind of like there in Rose Theater, 60th and Broadway, Jazz Lincoln Center. We're all kind of like in the House of Swing all at the same time, listening to all the bands, and that's really that's an amazing experience because these students all take the stage, and the ovation and the celebration from the other schools is unparalleled. I mean, you have all these other schools just rooting, to their heart's content, for some of the other bands. I mean, really just celebrating, because everybody works hard and everybody has done a lot to make sure that their playing is at the very top, and they're presenting their principles, and they're presenting themselves, and all the other schools really support that, and so we all get a chance to hear each other, and it's really an incredible experience to hear all the students from all the other schools cheer for all these other schools. When they're soloing, they're hooting and hollering and standing ovations, and the students really give it up.
Is that part of the jazz culture? I feel like with other types of music and other sports and other things that you don't have that environment where people are rooting for the other people to win.
It's competition is often misunderstood. In order for there to be true competition, you have to recognize the excellence in your opponent. That needs to happen. It needs to be understood.
Yeah.
I mean, I think our football team a couple of times maybe didn't always recognize the excellence in our opponent, and we paid the price for it.
Yeah.
When we've given our opponent the proper amount of respect and the proper amount of preparation, we were successful. These are some outstanding ensembles that will be competing with us. I know several of the directors. I know their reputation. I know several of the schools. There's a tremendous amount of respect there on behalf of myself and on behalf of the students. So it's really a celebration, and I guess, that is within the culture of jazz. Jazz is a very competitive art form. The culture of the cutting contest, between territory bands and jam sessions, and 2 tenor players going at it, until 3, 4 in the morning. But you never necessarily want somebody else to fail. You enjoy that experience. You learn a lot about yourself, through competition. But what it requires is that you have to recognize the excellence in the folks that you're competing with, or the folks that you're going against. And I think that's where that comes out. We recognize the hard work, we recognize the musicianship, the soul, the dedication, the love, and I think that's evident, in the experience that, when you see all these bands listening to one another, they're just cheering and rooting each other on, and it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, well, we'll all be here definitely rooting for you and for all the bands. How important is it for your students just to be able to go to New York City? I can imagine as a jazz musician, that's just a checkbox that you just want to go to that city at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to be able to make a pilgrimage there,
Yeah.
to visit. It's has the highest concentration of outstanding musicians that are practicing our art form. Our range is similar to the Japan trip. It's all over the map. We have students that have been to New York. We have students from, out of state, and then we have students, this will be their first time on an airplane.
Yeah.
So it's kind of,
Get ready.
yeah, it's all over the place. So some of them don't know what quite to expect. And in those instances, you focus on the music. You focus on the thing that's of the utmost importance, and it really is, the music. At the end of the day, it's making sure that the music is in top form, and you're representing yourself well through your musicianship. And that's the best thing about music, and jazz music in particular, is that it, because there's so much freedom of expression through the art form, it really represents who you are as an individual, not just as a musician. And that's one of the testaments to this music, and I think that's why it's so powerful.
Great. Well, anything you want to add before we kind of wrap it up?
I'm 99.9% sure it's going to be live streamed, so be sure to tune in.
No, really? Wow, that's great. I know with jazz it's hard because a lot of the stuff is still under copyright.
Jazz at Lincoln Center is a significant organization. I think they got it covered.
They know some people.
They've done this once or twice. They've done this a few times. But yeah, it's the competition is always live streamed, and there's interviews following each band. Todd Stoll will usually interview a few members of the band. I haven't decided who I'm going to send up to talk. Maybe I'll see who has the best haircut when we get on the plane. I'm not sure.
Yeah, whoever ironed their shirt that morning. Great. Well, we'll put everything down below, all the links to the live stream, the schedule, everything down below as we get it. So thank you so much for sitting down.
Thank you.